So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and I'm joined today by Robert Garven. And as you can see, he's the drummer for Cirith Ungol, who are going to release a brand new album on the 20th. And I believe I don't know if this will be your last album because you also did a press conference or a statement that in 2024 you're going to do your last tours.
Well, you know what? It looks that way. But next year is going to be the last year we play live. I'm still hoping to play drums and kind of do some stuff. So I'm not going to completely rule that out. What I've been telling people is the Beatles quit playing live in 1964 and all their best albums came after that. But I can't guarantee we're going to do that. I think the reason we're doing this is because we're getting older and when we got back together, we thought we'd play one or two shows, maybe, because we'd broken up for 25 years and we were talked into getting back together to play a couple of shows. And we thought we'd do it for the fans. It became so fun and we started playing bigger shows and people liked it. We started writing some music. We put out a few records and got a good response. So we thought, hey, let's keep this up for a while. But the band broke up originally after being together 20 years. And at the end of next year, it'll be 9 years since we got back together. Now, I know you subtract 3 years of the pandemic. That only gives us 6, But I think that we put out some really good music. And I think there's a feeling on the part of the band that we want to go out on top, at the top of our game instead of hanging around until we're like a shadow of our former selves.
Yeah, makes sense. There's been a debate recently about like when should a band or musicians retire. Especially a lot has been discussed about Ozzy Osbourne and his health problems, and he said like he still wants to tour. I'm like he can barely walk. Like I don't think just because a band is older that means that they shouldn't tour. But it all it takes a toll on the body. I assume.
Yeah, well, if we were the Rolling Stones or some band that was making a lot of money, that's a joke. I would have someone carry me from my drum throne to my private limousine on the way to my private jet to my private villa in Puerto Rico, right? But
Yeah.
that's not how it is. A lot of the time we'll fly to Europe and it'll take 3 days to get there, and we're on the ground for one day, and then we fly home the next day, and it's pretty brutal, everyone says, hey, what did you see? We played New York City a couple of weeks ago, and they go, what did you see? And I go, I saw the Statue of Liberty out of the airplane. I took a picture of it. So, we enjoy playing. We even enjoy a little bit of the traveling and stuff. But I think this is also going to be a good boost because a lot of people thought maybe, hey, these guys will be around forever, so why go see them? So this is a good way for us to draw a line in the sand, saying if you wanted to ever come see the band, come see us. This is the last year we're playing.
Yeah. And you promise people that you are not Kiss, so you won't have a farewell tour for 23 years.
Yeah, Tim tells a funny story. Tim's son is 35, and he took him when he was 10 years old to see Scorpion's last tour. So I don't think, I don't think we're going to pull that on people.
No, yeah, the fake out guy is the last tour, but they keep on going. So yeah, the new album is called Dark Parade, and I heard the singles Velocity, Looking Glass. I also heard the album as a full, but the singles are pretty interesting. So what can you tell me about, the singles that you chose and why you chose those songs as singles?
Well, Velocity, on almost every one of our albums, or on every one of our albums, the first song has always been kind of like a fast-paced, full-throttle song. If you look at our albums up here, Frost and Fire was the first song, Atom Smasher, Blood and Iron, Join the Legion, Legions Arise. This one's Velocity. So I think we've always put out a song like that. And, now that because we didn't have an internet back then, but I think with the internets, out there. The record company, you know, every time we have a new record out, you know, they'll put like the kind of the most uh I won't say exciting, but the first song out that's kind of like a teaser for the rest of the album. And Looking Glass, I'm glad that was picked because that's one of my favorite songs. It's a very cool classic Cirith Ungol song. A lot of our songs in the middle, they have kind of like a slower middle section with an amazing solo in it. And that's kind of what this song feels like to me. And that's one of my favorite songs on the album. And so I'm glad that that's what they are. But you know, there's a level of heaviness and doom on this album that transcends both of those songs. And if you got to hear the whole album, I'm sure you've heard that.
No, yeah, there's one of the songs that's like a longer song, and it feels a little bit more epic. I think the song is "Sailor on the Seas of Fate." That
Yes.
one's like longer, and it takes its time, and has a little bit of progginess to it, if you will.
Yeah, you know, that's one of my other favorite songs on there. Uh, One of the jokes with the band is I'm doing this interview with you today, but if you ask any other band member what their thought was that song or influenced, everyone would give you a different story. And that's kind of the funny thing about our band. You know, it's like we're not sticking to kind of like a you know, talking points, right? Uh, but when I was a kid, my parents took me to go see Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston, and there's a scene in that movie where he's on a Roman slave galley and he's rowing, and there's a guy up in front with these hammers just going bam, bam, and like he speeds it up trying to get the, you know, they go battle speed, boom, boom, boom. Then they go attack speed, boom, 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 ramming speed, boom, boom, boom. So my whole life, I wanted to kind of take that as an influence and put it into a song. So whenever you or anyone else listens to that song, that's not necessarily what the lyrics mean or what the other band members thought. But for me as a drummer, I was that guy, you know, at the front of the boat, like pounding on the leather pad with his giant hammers. And uh, yeah, I love that song. It's a pretty amazing, you know, and it's supposed to set the tone. That's why you hear the ocean at the beginning and
Yeah,
seagull creaking the boat. You know, we really had to stretch to get some of this really cool sound, but you can hear like an old boat creaking just to set the mood for the rest of the song. And you know, that's an amazing song. Amazing song.
yeah. And for a band, for your band that you know started in the '80s, then you took that time where you broke up and you came back. How how much difference, like in the crowds, have you noticed from back in the day to more of the recent crowds?
Well, in Europe, most of the crowds are under 30. They're younger, you know. In the United States, it's a mix because we have some new fans, plus a lot of the fans that were with us when our album came out, which are possibly, you know, closer to our age. So there'll be a mix of older and younger people. Um, but you know, everyone seems to get what we're trying to do. And the amazing thing on our last two albums, the thing that kind of like amazed us most and kind of made us feel good and also kind of shocked us too, when Forever Black came out, they go, "This album sounds like it was recorded in the 1980s, and it sounds like it would have came out right after their previous album, Forever Black. I mean, Paradise Lost, right?" Uh, and the irony is that we're a band from the 80s, and so whatever we do is going to sound like Cirith Ungol, and it's going to sound like no matter what recording studio you put us in, no matter what instrument you give us. Uh, no matter what time frame you put us in the world, we're always going to sound like we're this heavy band from the 1980s.
It's in your DNA.
Yeah. And
And
just so you know, we've tried to progress and evolve, but I mean, it's like, you know, evolution takes millions of years.
well, it's not like you're gonna go full on and do like some rap or trap to the Cirith Ungol sound. And I recently talked a few months ago with another band that started in the '80s and also like went away and came back, Jack Panzer.
Yes.
So and we had that discussion of like the now and then, and they also came back because I also talked with him. I think there's been a resurgence for 80s, especially with TV, with a show like Stranger Things. So the 80s have come back as it's like nostalgia, but also it's become hip again. Because there was a time like in the late 90s or the beginning of the 2000s where like 80s was like no one was talking about the 80s, but now it's like it's come back full circle. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, I don't know if you surf. We live in a surfing town. I'm not much of a surfer, but I've surfed a little bit. You're out, you're waiting for the waves to come in, and you could sit there, you could go out 20 days in a row and not have any waves. And then you hear on the news there's going to be waves coming in. And then you're out there waiting for the big wave. You catch it and you ride it. I think that's how society is. And that may be another reason why our band, we're kind of like retiring at the end of this year from playing, is because what becomes popular in society or in popular society, let's say trends, they don't last forever.
That's
Uh,
true.
and so we might have caught the wave of the resurgence of the 1980s heavy metal popularity thing, right? And the last thing we want to do is, after we catch this wave and it's such a great wave that we rode, we don't want to be sitting there on the board like waiting for another generation, for another set of swells to come. And so I think we're just what we're trying to do, we're trying to leave at the top of our game, and we also want to go out with a bang instead of a whimper. And I understand what you're saying about the 80s. And yes, that's kind of where we were from. But I think the music that we play is timeless. Because if you look at
Yeah.
where we got it from, we grew up on the Jimi Hendrix, Cream, Blue Cheer, Deep Purple, the early Black Sabbath, all that stuff. Uh, and this is an analogy I've been using all day long because I've done a bunch of interviews today. Uh, think of Cirith Ungol, we're on a train track. There's no way to get off the train track unless you derail or some guy pulls a lever and you go off one side or the other. Like this one side may be progressive rock, could be new wave, could be, I don't know, rap, hip hop rock or whatever. We're on that train track and we're staying on it from the beginning to the end. And unless we get derailed, you know,
Hmm.
and we might hit a truck at a crossing or something and get derailed and stuff. But other than that, we're going to stay with what we started with. And we feel that the type of metal that we're playing is not just unique to us. It's kind of something that we feel is kind of like you mentioned in DNA. We feel like it's what we came from and it's what we revere and it's what we hold up. It's something that we kind of, I wouldn't say worship is kind of a strong word, but I mean, it's something that we feel so strongly about. We want to share our version of it with our listeners, and also just try to promote it as something that we feel is the ultimate form of music, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, makes total sense. And your album covers, they're very epic. When I listen to Cirith Ungol, there's power metal elements, but there's also like new wave of British heavy metal elements. Or like when I talk to Jack Panzer, you're like the new wave of like American heavy metal because you bands are from the States, but you had that distinctive sound. Great like a lot of soloing and very, to me it's like classic heavy metal when I think of the sound of your band. So we're looking at the cover for the newest album. So yeah, it's very like, obviously I know your name is derived from Lord of the Rings, so this is very Lord of the Rings. That looks like a Lord of the Rings character.
Yeah, that guy's name is Elric, and he's on all our album covers except
Yeah.
for one, Servants of Chaos. And the Witch's Game. But this is how this all came about. When we were putting out our first album, we wanted to put out a demo so that we could get some record company attention. So we wanted to put out the best album that we could, as good as any record or record company would put out. I was reading this book here, Stormbringer by Michael Moorcock, and we were looking for an album cover. And I looked at this book and I said, this would be the best album cover that ever existed. I contacted the publisher. They put me in contact with them. And we made friends with Michael Whalen. We were the first band ever to use any of his paintings on our album. Other bands, Sepultura and other bands had recently used his stuff. But we just loved his artwork so much. We thought, this, even though it's not uh, what our songs are about. And Cirith Ungol, we got that name when we were 13, right? And it's a misconception, we don't write a bunch of songs about the Lord of the Rings, and here and there we might write a little song with a reference to that, or like to Elric, that's the guy on our album cover. But we want to be defined by our music, not by the imagery around us, but we bring this imagery with us because we just love, we're celebrating this painter, and we think, this would be a good album cover. We could put, who knows what you could put on an album cover. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff you could do, but we also thought too, we came from a time where you'd be flipping through a record bin and you pull out the album that looked the coolest and you would buy it.
Yeah, I'm from that era too.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 80s, but I got more into music like in the 90s. But yeah, it was all about like, there's a lot of albums that you bought because you saw the artwork and it was cool. And nowadays, there's a lot of bands that I feel are lazy with the album covers, and they don't. They would think, people don't buy albums, so why do it? But yeah, back in the day, sometimes you bought something because of the album cover.
Yeah. And Michael Whalen, to us, he's kind of like the modern day Michelangelo. And so that's why we're very proud and honored to use his work. Uh, I have to say, I came in late to you, and so we can go late. But I want you to know I have another interview after this, so I apologize.
No, don't worry.
For me rambling. But what I was going to say is, if you want to ask me any questions, I'll try to answer them like more succinctly without.
Oh no, I just wanted to ask you, as being the drummer, how did you approach the drumming on this album differently than from the previous album? Did you try something different on this one?
You know what? Not really. I always kind of believe I was never a technical drummer like a Neil Peart or someone like that. I always consider myself more of a caveman type drummer, like maybe Karki Lang and Mountain, or Bill Ward and Black Sabbath. They may object to that thing, but what I liked about their style was it was kind of like a crazy style. It wasn't perfect, but it had a lot of feeling and emotion. And I consider my style is almost like performance art. When I'm up on stage, I'm really feeling the songs. I get all excited and worked up, and I put on kind of like a musical show, so to speak. And what I also believe is that, like, the drummer should play to the song, not the other way around. And so that's why some of the parts in there, they're kind of very slow, or they're kind of sluggish. I even listened to some of the parts and I say, I should have done more drumming there, more of a drum beat. But then I tried something and it seemed to take away from the feeling of the song that we were trying to do. And so, that's kind of what my goal is, to play the best drums for that song that we've written. And it may not please everyone, but I mean, that's my style, which is very unusual.
Okay. So before, I know you're a busy man and you have more of this to do. So before I let you go, like, what can you tell to the fans that have stuck with you since the 80s until now?
Wow, we've been on an amazing journey together, and it's not over yet. So, we're on the last, it's like you're on a hike, and this is the last thing till you get to top of Mount Everest, and then you're going to lose all your toes and freeze to death, right? So we're still on this march together, and come see us at one of our shows. We're going to be playing as many shows as we can next year. I'm not sure we're doing
festivals too.
Yes, and we've always tried to play the larger festivals because that way we can get our music out to as many people as at once. Everyone loves playing small clubs because they're intimate, and it's fun to do that. But since we don't play that many shows a year, the bigger the show we play, the more people that we can actually share our music with. And that's going to be our plan for next year. But, we're just very thankful that other people enjoy the music that we wrote basically for ourselves. We never wrote it really to sell it. We wrote it because it's what we love. And the fact that you or anyone else listens to it and appreciates it just is so humbling. It's hard to explain the feeling that we get when we hear someone say something, because it's not what we really expect.
No, I totally agree. So Robert, I want to thank you for taking time of your busy day to chat with me a little bit about the upcoming Cirith Ungol album. So Dark Parade out on October 20th. I'm going to post the link somewhere here for people who want to pre-order that. And go catch Cirith Ungol on 2024 before they go out into that sunset and not fade out or burn out or burn away like Def Leppard says. They're going out on their own terms.
Thank you very much. And look, if you ever want to talk to me again, let's do it.
No, of course. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.